All right. Okay. Have you ever been in Vietnam lately, especially in a place like Da Nang or Nha Trang? If you probably know, there are Russians everywhere. Not just on vacation, they're living here, building businesses, sending their kids to school, showing up in dance classes and church services. But why? By the end of this video, you're going to understand the real reason behind this rising Russian expat wave, from the war in Ukraine to cultural ties from the Cold War era, and how the shift is shaping the future of life abroad for everyone. Stick around because I'll share what it's like to raise a family here in the middle of this cultural shift and what we've learned from our Russian neighbors. Hey, I'm Mai, a Canadian mom of two living in Da Nang, Vietnam. We sold everything back in Canada to rebuild a slower, more intentional life abroad. And I share the truth behind what it really means to redefine home, create income, and educate beyond the system. Normally, I talk about homeschooling, digital income, and family freedom. But today, I want to take you deeper into a migration story that's unfolding in real time. This is about the Russians moving to Vietnam and what it means for the people who already live here and the ones thinking of coming next. I was just so interested. I always like the history of why things happen, and I hope doing the research will help us out figure out why Russians are leaving home. Let's start with what's driving this shift. Since the Russia and Ukraine war began in 2022, millions of Russians have quietly left their home country. They're not all protesters. Many are just regular people, professionals, parents, digital nomads who no longer feel safe, stable, and free in Russia. Western sanctions have isolated the Russian economy. International travels have become difficult and restricted. Banking and payment platforms like Visa, MasterCard, and PayPal suspended service. The fear of conscription or ongoing surveillance is very real, so people started looking outwards. According to a 2023 estimate by the Washington Post, over 1 million Russians have left the country since the war began. Places like Georgia, Turkey, Serbia, Thailand, and yes, Vietnam became surprising havens. Why Vietnam? Why not somewhere else? Here are the reasons that keep coming up, and honestly, I can relate to almost all of them. Number one, political neutrality. Vietnam has taken a non-aligned, neutral stance in the global conflicts. It's not a NATO country. It doesn't impose harsh visa restrictions. It doesn't take sides publicly in wars between big powers. That neutrality makes it a rare, safe zone for people from sanctioned of politically controversial countries. Number two, visa access. Vietnam offers multiple visa options that are more accessible than in the West. So there's a 90-day tourist visa with potential of renewals, student language school visas, business registration options for residency, less scrutiny than Europe or North America. While other countries have shut their doors, Vietnam kept them cracked open. Number three, affordability. Compared to Russia or any European country, the cost of living in Vietnam is incredibly low. Rent in Da Nang or Nha Trang can be about $250 to $600 a month, depending on location. Food, transportation, even private education is all doable for a middle-class income, especially if working online. For many Russians, this means that they can maintain or improve their standard of living without getting into survival mode. Number four, familiarity. Here's something few people know. Vietnam and Russia go way back. During the Soviet era, Vietnam received technical, military, and educational support from Russia. Thousands of Vietnamese studied in Moscow and St. Petersburg. There's a layer of cultural familiarity that makes Vietnam feel more welcoming than the West. And in a place like Nha Trang, Russian businesses, restaurants, and tour companies are already thriving before 2020. So how did we see this firsthand? When we actually lived in Nha Trang for a season, and we noticed that the Russian presence there, it was undeniable. One night we were walking through the night market and realizing something strange. I didn't even hear Vietnamese or English, I heard Russian. The music was like Russian pop, vendors were speaking fluent Russians to customers like they were totally normal. And I thought, wow, this is more than tourism, this is a community. What it looks like in Da Nang today. So now we live in Da Nang and the Russians' presence is still very real and growing. My daughter's gymnastics class is mostly Russians. Our church has growing numbers of Russian families. The girls have picked up Russian phrases from their friends in gymnastics class. The last performance that they did was set to Russian music with Russian parents filling the front row, cheering and filming. And these aren't tourists. These are families settling down, buying motorbikes, enrolling in local schools, building businesses. Some of our closest friends here are Russian, and they have been incredibly generous, kind, and supportive. They're building from scratch, just like we are. So here's a quick pause if you're just joining in. So far, we covered why Russians are leaving, why Vietnam is the top choice, and how the shift is showing up in everyday life. Now let's talk about what this means for the future, for Russians, for Vietnam, and for people like you who might be thinking of moving here too. So homeschooling, communities, and business. Homeschooling and education. Our homeschool classes and community events in Da Nang are now more multilingual and multicultural than ever. Russian families are part of that growth. Some homeschool, some enroll in international schools, and many blend both. Like I said, my daughters learned Russian phrases in gymnastics. They perform at events where the music and vibe reflects Russian traditions. It made our world bigger, more layered, and our kids are growing up with a truly global-led business and work. Many Russians here are entrepreneurs creating their own work, opening cafes or tour services, working online in tech, content, and coaching, offering service to other Russians moving here. They're not waiting for permission, they're building on the go just like many of us did. It's changing what typical expats look like. It's no longer just retirees or backpackers, it's families creating long-term plans. Future tourism and local reactions. Russian tourists have become Russian residents, and it's changing Vietnam's tourist zone. Menus are in Russian, real estate in market through Russian Facebook groups. Whole neighborhoods cater to this audience. In Da Nang, we're not far behind. It's starting, especially in Mai An and in Trong, will grow. Local reactions. There's curiosity and there's concern. Locals are worried about rising rent prices or cultural clashes, but many also appreciate the businesses, the economy, contribution, and the community building. The overall feeling? Respectful observation. Because here, most people understand that everyone's just trying to live better. This life isn't what we planned, but it's the one we chose. And I think many Russian families here would say the same. They didn't leave because they hated where they came from. They left because they love their families more than the idea of staying stuck. And now we're raising kids side by side, learning from each other, building something new together. And I think the future of Vietnam's expat life will be shaped by those of us who are here now, showing up with curiosity and courage and kindness. If you're dreaming of this kind of life, more freedom, more purpose, more connection, I'd love for you to join my free newsletter, My Notes. It's where I share real-life stories, mindset shifts, and ways to start living differently, even if you haven't moved yet. And if you like to support what I do here on YouTube, consider joining my YouTube membership. It's just $2.99 a month. It keeps this content growing. Links are below. I'll appreciate you being part of this journey with us. And if you want to know how we make money online abroad while homeschooling, raising our kids, and living in Vietnam, check out the video right here. No fancy setup, no fluff, just the real steps that help us rebuild life on our terms. Let's grow, glow, and flourish together.